Dennis Farrell here, host of the Dougcast with James Ellsworth, welcoming back Blue Chew. You remember them from a few podcasts ago? They are back for this very special podcast with Y2J Chris Jericho. Before we get to that interview and the rest of the Dougcast, let me tell you a little bit about Blue Chew. It's like the color blue. BlueChew.com brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. We all know what they all work. So does Blue Chew. You can take them any time of day, any time of night. As long as your millennium clock is ticking, you can take it. Full or empty stomach, you can take it. Since it's chewable, they work up to twice as fast as the pill. We all want it quicker. You know it. Space Mountain, give it a woo. It works quicker. So you can be ready when the opportunity arises. So now you can put her in the walls of Jericho for the 1, 2, 3, the clean finish in the middle of the bed, baby. BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a very discreet package. We all know how important that is. So no in-person doctor visits, no waiting in line at the pharmacy, and best of all, no awkwardness. That's right, they made it in the US of A, baby. And since Blue Chew is prepared and ships direct to you, it's cheaper than a pharmacy. That's right, cheaper. Here's how you can avoid making the list of Jericho, because right now we have a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com. Get your first shipment free when you use a special promo code Ellsworth. ELLSWORTH. Use that promo code. Help us get paid, baby. And just pay $5 shipping. That's it, $5. Again, that's BlueChew.com, BLUE Chew.com. And the promo code Ellsworth. You try it for free, just pay $5 shipping. Hey, with BlueChew.com, now you can put her into one of the 1,004 holds you know, and you can finally be the very first undisputed champion of your bedroom. BlueChew.com.
Hey, this is Chris Jericho inviting you to the first ever rock and wrestling Rager at Sea. Picture this: rock and roll, wrestling, comedy, live podcasting, all on the open ocean from October 27th to the 31st, 2018, from Miami to Nassau. I'm bringing Hall of Fame wrestlers, some of the greatest rock and roll bands on the planet, and putting the first wrestling ring on a cruise ship ever. Don't be a stupid idiot. Make the list. Check us out at ChrisJerichoCruise.com.
In just a second, James, we're welcoming on Chris Jericho. But first, let me tell you about the Chris Jericho Rock and Wrestling Rager at Sea, October 27th through the 31st. Announced talent: Jay Lethal, Flip Gordon, Adam Hangman Page. You can go to ChrisJerichoCruise.com. We'll talk more about it here in a second. But James, it's your buddy.
Hold on a second, man. Wait, I got to jump in here right now. The names that you announced, out of all the guys that are on, you announced Flip Gordon, Jay Lethal, Adam Page, and James Ellsworth. That's what you're going with on this?
Well,
how about the Bullet Club? How about the Young Bucks? How about Cody Rhodes? How about Kenny Omega? How about Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, Rey Mysterio, Conan, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, James Ellsworth on top of all of this, and Flip Gordon, Adam Page, and whoever the hell else you said. Well, that's how you do it. You like went from the bottom up. On that one, man. Way to undersell my cruise.
No, I had a second.
He did like the kickoff show, I believe, of talent.
Guys, I had a second read that I was going to do on your way out, where I was going to hit the Alpha Club.
Well, dude, you got to, on the way out, you got to start with the way in. People don't have time to mess around for the way out nowadays. I mean, the people got stuff going on now. When they listen to the Dougcast, they want to hear the hot news, the top news right off the bat. That's what they're listening
That's
for.
right, Dennis.
They don't have time to mess around. Ellsworth doesn't have time to mess around. Ellsworth's a busy guy. Ellsworth is a multinational, worldwide famous star. He needs to lead with the heavy hitters, man. That's how it works.
Sammy
Absolutely.
Callahan and Brian
Give us
Cage.
the names you gave us. Ugh. Sorry about that, Chris. He's not the smartest guy
You know
in
what?
podcasting.
You know what, Ellsworth? Here's the thing. You know what? Host, Ellsworth's host, you just stay quiet and don't say another word. Ellsworth, you take over right now. Here we go. James Ellsworth,
Absolutely.
Southcast.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, Chris, you've had a hell of a year. You had a 5-star match against Kenny Omega. You are the IWPG Intercontinental Champion, and you're doing all this. It's almost amazing. Like you'll be 48 this year. It's no secret. You talk about your age all the time, and you're still wrestling at a high level. You're still in great shape. How much longer do you think you'll be wrestling at this level, and how long in your head do you think you'll still be going?
I don't know, dude. Like, it's something I don't really ever think about. And when you say 47, give me 48, it's weird because in this day and age, it really doesn't matter. You know, I've always said it. I actually said it this week. I said great matches are fine in wrestling, but the most important thing is connecting with the audience and characters and personality and charisma. You know, and you can do that no matter what age you are. But also, I've been very blessed. I've never been injured once my entire career. I still, and you said wrestling at a high level, I'm still wrestling at the level that I set for myself, the standards that I set for myself. And if the time ever came where I had a match or a string of matches where I thought, you know what, that wasn't up to Chris Jericho's snuff, that wasn't up to Chris Jericho's standards, then I would step aside gracefully. But for right now, to this day, I mean, to the last match that I had with Naito in Osaka back in June, we didn't have the best match on the show, but we had the second best match of the show. And any match that I have and any show that I'm on, if I don't feel that I have the potential to have the best match or the second best match or one of the best matches on the show, then I would bow out. But I find, you know, it's funny, when I was just starting out, I remember working a TV taping in 1991 or 92 in like Winnipeg, and Nick Bockwinkel was the guest commentator. And he watched my match, and he came over to me after. He said, "You do too much. You're doing too much. You don't have to do this much." And then we were like thinking, like, as ridiculous as it sounds, we've all been through it. As a 21-year-old kid going, what the fuck does Nick Bockwinkel know? Like, you know, he's just jealous because he can't do, you know, a moonsault from the top rope. Now here I am, you know, 26 years later, and realizing, well, of course, Nick Bockwinkel was right. It's not about the moves that you do. It's where you put them. It's how you do it, and it's the storyline behind it. So once you really embrace that, and once you really understand it, as long as you're physically fit, as long as you can still, you know, work as hard as you used to, you can last a long time in this business, because it really is all about the connection with the audience, the psychology, the story that you tell, and how smart you are when you're in the ring doing what we do.
Chris, James said that you were the top of your industry right now, which you certainly are. And you recently set the internet ablaze with some comments you made regarding Impact Wrestling. Well, 2 words, of course, when someone tweeted you and asked you if you were interested. How real is that interest this late in your career, going to a company that is essentially rebuilding everything from reputation to talent?
Well, you know, it's sort of like I said, like late in my career, it's something that I used to talk about with The Rock about. You know, nowadays, if you get into 30 or early 40s, it's like, well, you know, maybe it's time to wrap it up. In the 70s, when you got to your mid-40s, that's kind of when you were on top. That's when you really started making big money. I'm thinking about, once again, mentioning Nick Bockwinkel. When I used to watch Bockwinkel in the AWA in like 82 or 83, when he was feuding with Hogan as a top heel, he was probably mid-40s. You know, Harley Race, mid-40s when he was on top. I remember Bret Hart won the WWE title when he was 40, I think, the first time. So, you know, what does the age really matter? To me, it's about, once again, the connection that you have with the audience, the experience that you can use, the psychology that you have. And for me at this point, I don't do anything for money. I do it because I enjoy doing what I do. And there's a lot of creative stimulation that comes with that. So when I've been working with the WWE for the last time or two, like 2016 was one of the best years of my career because there was a great pairing with Kevin Owens. We had a great chemistry, and there's a lot of fun, a lot of cool stuff going on there. And then, it was time to move on. Then when the idea happened for Omega versus Jericho, Alpha versus Omega in New Japan, it was so unorthodox for me. I'd never worked anywhere but for Vince for almost 20 years. So to go to Japan to work with Kenny was a big step, but it was also something that I thought, you know what, this is really interesting to me. It's very creatively interesting. And at this stage of the game, I'm not going to do anything unless it's creatively interesting, creatively stimulating. So, I went to New Japan. I never thought that I would. And so when someone says, would you ever go to Impact? Would you ever go to Ring of Honor? Would you ever go here, there, or whatever? Yeah, sure, why not? If it's creatively satisfying, if it's something that I really can sink my teeth into, something that I can really enjoy, then why wouldn't I give it a try? At this point, I've done everything I could ever do in wrestling. I have a loyalty to WWE, but not a death wish with them or anything like that where I'm going to, by hook or by crook, I have to be with the WWE. I think part of the fun of what's going on right now in the business is there is a real resurgence with independent wrestling companies, and it really gives the WWE a kick in the ass when people go other places. I mean, you have guys like Kenny and the Young Bucks and Cody and people that are walking away and choosing not to sign with WWE, which was never an option, 5-10 years ago. It was all about working with the WWE and signing with the WWE. Now it's like, well, you know what? The WWE is there, but what if you have a chance to go somewhere else and do some work elsewhere that kind of takes your career and your life in a different direction? So, I haven't spoken to anybody at TNA, and I'm not saying I would ever go there, but I'm not saying I wouldn't. And I'm not saying I wouldn't go to WWE or go to New Japan or go wherever. To me, it's all about, helping to change the business in a lot of ways. And if there's a way you can do it by being a little bit of a quote-unquote revolutionary, well, then why not? Let's go for it, man. This is show business. It's entertainment. It's the Wild West. There's no rules. And nobody says that if you have to work in the WWE, you don't have to work there. I mean, independent wrestling at this point in time is bigger than it's ever been. And that's a good place for me to be in, and for James Ellsworth to be in, and Kenny Omega, and everybody else that's kind of a quote-unquote independent guy. Now's the time to be independent because you really can go make a real good living and make a difference outside of the WWE bubble, which hasn't been something that you could do for years. I mean, since the closing or since the highlight of WCW back in 98, 99. So it's an exciting time for everybody involved.
Absolutely. Like this year, I've done a lot of independents. There's so many good indies out there. It wasn't like that like 10 years ago. And there's just like a lot of independents that are doing very well and drawing very well and have the money to bring in guys that are from TV and everything, former WWE guys or guys like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks that are very hot on the indies. And you touched on something earlier, Chris, and age doesn't matter in this business anymore. It's almost like rock and roll. The Rolling Stones could still sell out any arena. Guns N' Roses can still sell out any arena. Like Chris Jericho and The Undertaker and Triple H can still sell out any arena. That the age doesn't matter. People still want to pay tickets and see them. And glad you touched on that earlier. Just it doesn't matter if people still want to come out and pay to see it.
But I think the difference, though, dude, is that the difference for me is that, yeah, sure, like for example, they're doing a show in Australia. It's Triple H versus The Undertaker, last time ever. Those aren't the matches that I'm having. My matches are against Kenny Omega. My matches are against Tetsuya Naito. They're against Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose. It's like I went to Jim Neidhart's funeral last week, and I was talking to Natty and TJ, and it's like, you know what? I'm like the only guy from my generation that's here. Like Jim's generation was like one generation older than mine, and like TJ's generation or your generation, Ellsworth, are like a generation. Let me rephrase that. Neidhart's was a generation older. You guys a generation younger, and for me, kind of in this middle, 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future. There's nobody in the business who's doing what I'm doing as far as working high-quality, 5-star, quote-unquote, main event money-drawing matches against guys 10, 15 years younger than me. And still, not just keeping up. I remember when I had the match with Omega, and people say, how is Jericho going to keep up with Omega? It's like, fuck that. I have to keep up with anybody. I'm Chris Jericho. I know how to put together a match where we're working with each other. And that's something that I loved about my run with WWE in 2016. I wasn't working with Undertaker or Triple H or Kane or Goldust. And not that there's anything wrong. They're all legendary Hall of Fame guys. I was working with Rollins, Ambrose, Owens, Zayn, Cesaro. I mean, that's the guys that I kind of consider myself. Those guys are my peers now, and they're all 10, 15 years younger. Like I said, I mean, AJ is the closest, and he's 40, But I was working with this whole new collection of guys that I'd never been in the ring with and having tremendous matches and learning from them and teaching them as well. And it's the same thing when I went to New Japan and to work with Kenny and then worked with Naito. It was a blast. But it's still Chris Jericho. I mean, I don't see myself as like, this veteran guy. I'm just a guy who knows how to work and knows what to do. And I would rather work with guys that are younger than me because they're the guys that are hot right now. And listen, Triple H and Undertaker, there's nobody bigger in the history of the business. But it's almost a nostalgia match. I'm not interested in nostalgia, ever. And you can tell by the way that I change my look and my gimmick and my catchphrase and the moves that I do and all that sort of stuff. I'm not interested in that. If I was coming back to nostalgia, I would quit tomorrow. I'm coming back and I'm working with the guys that are at the top of their game today, just as I consider myself to be the top of my game too. So like you mentioned, whether it's the Stones or Guns N' Roses or Greta Van Fleet, whether you're 20 or 70, you're either good or you aren't. And the Stones can jam with frickin', Alicia Keys, or they can jam with, I don't know, the Harry Styles. And that's the way it should be. You should be able to jam and play and work with anybody at any age and not just be reserved for, the seniors tour. I don't want that. If Vince said to me, hey, you're going to work, some match with Triple H and Undertaker, I'd be like, dude, put me in there with Rollins or put me in there with, with anybody. Put me in there with Finn Balor. Those are the type of guys that I feel more kindred spiritship with at this point in time than anybody else. And right, wrong, or whatever. That's just kind of how I see myself and kind of how I feel.
You talk about these guys and you talk about Vince and how much you have loyalty towards Vince. And, one day it's going to change. Vince will eventually move out or move on to the big promotion in the sky. Do you feel like you'll have that same loyalty to the next regime that runs the WWE? Or...
I think here's the misconception. Of course, I have loyalty to Vince and loyalty to the WWE. It's where my home has been for 18 years. But when I made that move to New Japan and kind of saw the other world of this whole crop of legitimate top main event guys that have no interest in going to WWE, it's like, you know what? I kind of dig that. I like that kind of maverick idea. So I'm loyal to the WWE, but I'll work anywhere at this point. The time of me saying I'll never work anywhere in the States except for Vince McMahon, it's gone. Because now it's a whole new world. It's a different market. And it's exciting. It's exciting the fact that there's a choice and there's an option for guys to go. And, like I said, it's weird because I've always gone against the grain when I wanted to get into wrestling. Ellsworth will tell you, he feels the same, I'm sure. Everyone says, you'll never make it. You'll never do it. When I got to WCW or ECW or WWE, you'll never make it. You'll never do it. And then I did it. So now it's like, you know what? I've done that. What if there was a chance to go somewhere else and make some waves? And if you don't care about money, if you're not motivated about money, it makes it so much better. And guess what? There's so much money in the business now from so many. There's 4 or 5 billionaires that are in the wrestling business when you think about it. That's insane. But that's the world we live in. So now it's not just a one-stop shop anymore. Now you have some options if you're not scared to take a chance. So listen, Vince McMahon is once in a lifetime. If I was in Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen was a guitar player and he died, listen, you could probably get 10, 20, 100 guys to replace him aesthetically. But as far as the creative genius behind those solos, yes, sure, guys can mimic them, but to think of it and to create them and to envision them, it ain't going to happen. When Vince goes to the great promotion in the sky, he's got a great support system lined up, but none of them are Vince. That's just the way it is. He's once in a lifetime. And the company will continue at this point. It's not about booking strategy or who's the top guy. It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter. It's all about the TV and the money that's made on TV and this and that thing. And plus, WWE has now ingratiated itself into the pop culture fabric of the world, not just America, of the world. So it doesn't matter if Vince, dies, retires, quits, if Triple H takes over, if James Ellsworth takes over. It's not going to make a difference. It's already become what it is. It's like Saturday Night Live. It's never going to go away. And I think now more than ever, that makes it even more exciting to look other places and to see what else is going on. And maybe you stay with WWE, maybe you don't. But now at least there's other places and choices where you can decide, what do I want to do? The pros and cons of being in the business. Do I want creative freedom? Do I want more money? Do I care that, if someone picks my merch designs, or do I like having Hot Topic, putting out my merch where you're making six figures for doing nothing on that respect? So it really is a really cool time. And I never thought that I would be experiencing this at 47 years old after being on the job for almost 28 years now. But now this could be the boom years of my career. Who would have ever thought it? I never thought it 2 or 3 years ago. But now that we're here, I'm not going anywhere. And the one thing you can't teach, and the one thing you can't push, and the one thing you can't, put in the machine is experience. And there's nobody in the business that has more experience than I have, with the exception of The Undertaker. Triple H started after I did. Kane started after I did. I mean, Undertaker and Goldust are the only guys I can think of that are like fairly active that started before I did.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you touched on it a little bit. Vince McMahon is once in a lifetime. I always tell people Vince McMahon's like wrestling's Walt Disney. He's the visionary, and he's the guy that made it all happen. And obviously Disney went on without Walt Disney, and WWE will without Vince McMahon, but nobody will be Walt Disney ever again. To me, nobody will be Vince McMahon ever again. But yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Cruise. You have an outstanding match that you put together, and I just want to know a little bit of how it came together. The Alpha Club versus the Bullet Club. You and the Young Bucks against Cody, Marty Scurll. Tell me how that came together. And Kenny Omega, right?
Omega.
Cody, Kenny, and Marty against you and the Young Bucks.
Dude, I mean, it's one of those things. And you know this because you called me and we talked about, including you on the cruise. It took me 2 years to put this thing together. It was not easy. And then, having to become kind of the talent booker and having a certain amount of money where I have to delegate, $10 to this person and $20 to this person and $100 to this thing. And, it's not easy to do. And also, I mean, my goal is to not do this. Like, let me give this a try. Like, my goal is to do this and make it an annual destination vacation, just like the Kiss Cruise or the Walking Dead Cruise. And those are the kind of the examples that I modeled my cruise afterwards. So as we're moving along and finding out that, first year cruises never sell out. And mine was actually doing really good, breaking all the rules. Like they said, okay, it's going to get within 3 months and die. Well, we're still selling a cabin a day or 3 cabins a day or 4 cabins a day or 0 cabins a day, but it's still moving. And I thought, listen, because my goal is to never wrestle on this. I've got 10,000 other fucking things I got to do.
Right.
But I thought I need a main event. I need something that I can advertise. I need kind of that once in a lifetime WrestleMania main event match that you're never going to see again and that you've never seen before. And I just thought about it. I talked to the Jacksons, to the Bucks. And my idea was be me and 2 partners versus the Bucks and Kenny Omega. And I was like, well, who could it be? And they're like, Rey Mysterio or somebody this or somebody that. And I think it was Nick Jackson said, why don't we make it the Bucks and Jericho versus somebody? I said, what if we make it the Bucks and I induct you into the Alpha Club and then we face the Bullet Club? And I had Kenny signed for one match. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I could put Kenny in there, which is the rematch from the Tokyo Dome. Put Marty in there, who I've never worked, and Cody, who's just gone to a different level since the last time I worked him 10 years ago. And the Vince McMahon kind of motto is that you have to have a tagline that you can put on a shirt. And Alpha Club versus Bullet Club, I was like, that's it, dude. That's the main event. Alpha Club, it's the Bucks of Jericho, or is it Y2 Jackson? That's the name, right? And it just so happened that we were going to all be in Osaka, Japan at the same time. So we did a bunch of videos for Being the Elite, which is super popular now as well. And suddenly we had this really great, concept of Alpha Club versus Bullet Club that everyone was buzzing about. Can we see it? Can we watch it on pay-per-view? Can we watch it? No. You either go on the cruise or you don't. It's like the Kiss cruise. Every year Kiss does a different kind of theme to the cruise. At the first night, everyone's checking the set list. What songs are they playing they've never played before? Well, if they play a song they've never played before from some obscure, 1979 record, and you're a Kiss fan, and you're not on the cruise, you miss out because there's no videos of it. There's no official live stream. You might be able to watch it in some kid's iPhone, but you're going to miss out. And that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted this to be a very exclusive, special match that you couldn't see anywhere else. And that's why we did it that way. So Alpha Club versus Bullet Club. And it's going to be one of those things where if you're not on the cruise, you might not see it. And that's okay. In this day and age, everyone's like, I'll just watch it streaming. Not on my cruise. And as a result, we're getting close to 90% sold out with 10 weeks to go. And for a first-year cruise, that's pretty much sold out. If we get to 94, 95, if we get all the way, if you can get in the 90s on your first cruise, that's a great indication that it's going to be a big success. And that's what we're doing.
Wow. And finally, before we get you out of here, and then next week, Ellsworth is on the Chris Jericho podcast network over at Westwood One, and I'm back hosting a podcast with Petey Williams. I want to wrap it up with one more question, and you're a podcaster now. You went from talent and still being talent to the other side into the media. Does that give you a different perspective towards podcasting and then kind of a journalistic view of wrestling from the other side of the train tracks?
Well, when you say you're a podcaster now, I mean, everyone's a podcaster now. The one thing that I have to my benefit is I started this in 2013. I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary. I started back when there was hardly any podcasts. I came into it. I had a show, a rock and roll show on Nikki Sixx's channel on Sirius Radio, and I had an interview segment on it. And then when that folded, I got a call to do a podcast. And, I started as a journalist. That's what I took in college. I have a degree in journalism from Red River College in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So I'm very curious as to what people's stories are. And the secret to a great podcast is, well, first of all, if you can do it in person, it's always the most beneficial because you can read people's faces, you can see their pauses, you can kind of understand where they're coming from. But two, never have questions and never prepare, ever prepare. And the reason why I say that is if I met you guys, let's say in a bar somewhere, and we strike up a conversation, I don't pull out, a list of questions from my pocket and go, so, James Ellsworth, I heard you have your own wrestling company. Where did you start? No, you just talk. And I've had conversations with, guys that William Shatner, for example, never once mentioned Star Trek. And why the fuck would he want to talk about Star Trek anyways? He talks about Star Trek every day. I had the best conversation with Shatner. We never mentioned Star Trek once, and that's what you want. So, I think what people enjoy about podcasts is kind of the fly-on-the-wall stories. And the more obscure those stories can be, the better it is. And that's why people love, if you sit down with the boys and have a couple drinks, because it just gets unorthodox. And then you're really just listening to a conversation. And my best shows have been just with zero preparation, off the cuff, flying by the seat of the pants. And the worst shows are the ones where I actually had questions prepared, like Snooki. I had Snooki on once. Like, the fuck am I going to talk about Snooki with? Because she don't give a shit. She's really boring. She sucked as a guest. So I have a bunch of questions. She's not really answering them. And it's like I'm straining to get like 30 minutes or 40. Like Mike Tyson, worst guest I've ever had. Every question I had was answered with one answer. So then I'm going on Wikipedia, scrambling, trying to find subjects to talk about because you don't want to talk. You know, the best interviews are people that understand the concept of what an interview is and just talk, man, and just have a good time. So that's kind of where I come from for my podcasting, and that's why, you know, it's not really an interview. It's more of a conversation. It's more of a chat, and that's why people enjoy listening to my show and why people enjoy doing them. I've had a lot of people like Lemmy, Paul Stanley, you know, people that, you know, Hulk Hogan, that have done a million interviews and said, you know what, that was one of my favorite interviews. I really had a good time doing that. And that's what you want, and that's the real secret to a great podcast. But before we go, I also have to say, and this is something that hasn't been announced yet, but it's going to be. I just spoke to the Ring of Honor officials tonight. James Ellsworth defending his intergender championship on the cruise. It's going to happen. We're just finding out who it's going to be against right now. And I'll tell you what, if the guest, if your opponent is who I think it is, one of the Women of Honor, you better train extra hard, Ellsworth, because this girl's a real tough contender, shall we say.
Well, yeah, I know they have a great women's division there at Ring of Honor with the Women of Honor. And, man, this intergender thing I've going on, the Intergender World Championship, it's great in 2018, man. I've had a lot of fun with it. I remember telling you the idea and how much you loved it, and I can't wait to defend it on the cruise. I am scared to face one of the Women of Honor girls because I know they're very tough. But, man, it's been a lot of fun. And then WWE, when I came back for those couple of months, I even got to work with Asuka a couple of times on TV, and the intergender stuff's been fun with me. And I think the audience feels the same way because with James Ellsworth, I'm not really a threat to the girls. It's just a fun concept to have the James Ellsworth character in there with women. And I believe the audience has a lot of fun with it. I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of fun with it on the Jericho Cruise. And, dude, I appreciate you coming on the Dougcast. It means a lot to me. You've always been very, very kind to me, and I really, really do appreciate that. And I know you know that. And, yeah, man, I can't wait to go out on the cruise. Dennis, take us away and tell us how people get on the cruise with the Bullet Club and like Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross and all the great stars that he has.
Thanks for killing my redemption here, but you could go to ChrisJerichoCruise.com. Brian Cage will be there, Sammy Callahan, Chris Jericho himself. You get 3 Fonzie shows, 3 Talk is Jerichos. You have a Sea of Honor tournament. You have Impact versus Ring of Honor. ChrisJerichoCruise.com. Man, James, what an interview with Chris Jericho.
Yeah, my part was great. Your part, not so much. Talking about the Jericho Cruise right off the bat, you almost made the list, but I don't think Chris Jericho thought you were important enough to put on the list. As a list alumni, like I am, so I've been put on the list. You know, that's a very, very, like, he puts people on the list that are stars and the people that you're going to remember. I guess that's why he put you on the list, because he should have. When you're not mentioning the Bullet Club and Chris Jericho and like Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross and all these great stars right off the bat, you did list some good people, but you didn't list the main eventers, the heavy hitters. What's wrong with you? If I had a list, I'd put you on it, but I don't have a list, and maybe you wouldn't make my list either.
I think he didn't put me on the list because he didn't remember my name.
Well, yeah, I don't blame. Hopefully he won't yell at me later for your bad journalism, but that's okay. It was a great interview. It's my buddy Chris Jericho. I appreciate him coming on. Like I told him, what an awesome guy, man.
As we wrap this up, let's hit some quick thoughts going out on SummerSlam weekend. One of my all-time favorite pay-per-view series that I can remember. This was, I would say, this might have been one of the best ones in the last 7 years.
Very good pay-per-view. Very good stories coming out of it. The Samoa Joe, AJ Styles story I really enjoyed. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns with Braun Strowman, the Money in the Bank story that they carried on the next night on Raw, and then the Shield coming back. I think they have some good stuff going on. Becky Lynch and Charlotte. There's a lot of good stories going on right now in WWE, and it's heating up going into the fall on their television. And yeah, man, I thought it was solid.
Your humble opinion is.
You always call me Chris Jericho.
I almost said
on your brain.
I've got Jericho on my brain. Yes, but in your humble opinion, did the Shield turn heel on Monday night?
No, they like a lot of people, and I get it, heroes, villains, baby faces, heels, they were protecting their buddy and protecting the Universal title. The Universal title hasn't seen TV much because it was around Brock Lesnar's waist, and Roman Reigns is trying to be that fighting champion that takes it town to town, and Braun Strowman has the Money in the Bank contract. He has the briefcase, and he wants to come out and take it away from him, and his buddies, the Shield, came down and shielded that from happening. I think that's a story. I don't think they're heel per se. I just think they're a couple of badasses helping out their buddy.
James, do you know how fans can get a phone call from James Ellsworth? I know you've always asked me, what is it like to talk to James Ellsworth because you're so awesome. But do you know what it takes for a fan to get a James Ellsworth phone call?
Yeah, just call me at 401. Actually, don't do that. No, you go on to Pro Wrestling Tees /Ellsworth, get yourself a Rehire Ellsworth t-shirt, and let General Manager Paige know that you want me back on SmackDown Live. And when you buy a Rehire Ellsworth shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com /Ellsworth, you're in line to win a phone call from James Ellsworth. And I'll call you and I'll thank you. Actually, I'm going to thank everyone that buys one. That's what I'm going to do because I'm feeling generous. I'm pumped up. It was a great SummerSlam weekend. The Jericho Cruise is coming up. I'm on that, defending the Intergender title. So I'm feeling generous because I'm in a good mood. So if you purchase a Rehire Ellsworth t-shirt and hit up Dennis to give him your phone number, I'm going to call you and thank you for purchasing the t-shirt. We've had a couple of sales this week. I'm going to get to those phone calls real soon.
All you have to do is my DMs are open on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, if you're not, you can go to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com, contact us, or WrestlingPerspective@gmail.com. Email me there, and I will make sure, hopefully that week that you buy the shirt, depending on how much orders come in. Right now, we're doing very good at phone call versus sales. We will make sure you get your phone call from James Ellsworth. He'll thank you. James, that's not something you have to do, by the way. You're doing it because you want to.
I want to, man. I like talking to the fans. Like all these, independent shows I go to, or when I'm with WWE doing shows, or I'm doing a Comic-Con, like I did Stockton Con over the weekend and had a great time out there in Cali. And let me just say, a guy named Mike that runs that, he was very professional, very cool. I'll go back next year if I'm available. Like it was just an awesome time out there at Stockton Con. But yeah, man, I don't have to do this. I very financially stable right now. I'm very blessed in that aspect. I'm not begging for cash or begging for you to buy the shirt. Like, I love talking to the fans, man. I really do. Like, James Ellsworth fans are fun. They are. They like some of the coolest wrestling fans in the world. I believe. Maybe I'm partial and homer to my fans, but they're so fun to talk to, and I can't wait to call them and hear their voice and hear the excitement. That makes me smile, man. It makes all the hard work really, truly worth it.
WWE stands for We Want Ellsworth. Just remember that.
It also stands for Walk with Elias, who I'm a huge fan of, Elias there on Raw. And but yeah, we want Ellsworth on SmackDown Live. Duh! And Jericho, I got to give a shout out. He did the duh on the duh cast, and that's a man after my own heart. I truly appreciate that. Dude, what a podcast. I think this is our best one to date. We definitely had the most popular guest to date. Dennis, after we get off the air here, I'm going to spend another hour on the phone with you, and we're going to go over how to start a podcast and how to announce the head guys first.
Yes, we are. It's something I'm never going to live down. But by the way, why don't you promote while we wrap this thing up?
Man, I'm coming back to Cali this Thursday. I'm going coast to coast. I just left Cali Monday morning. I'm going back Thursday for Bar Wrestling, one of my favorite independent wrestling promotions, ran by my good buddy Joey Ryan. We're doing a Battle of the Sexes match, 4 guys against 4 girls. Joey and I are on a team. We like calling ourselves Intergeneration X, as Joey Ryan and I's tag team name. Get that on a t-shirt. So I'm going out there Thursday. I can't wait. It's such a fun place. And then this weekend, I'm at Standalone Wrestling. They have a big a Boardwalk Beatdown at the dinner for the fans Friday night with them. Then we have the Boardwalk Beatdown Saturday. Convention starts at 9 a.m. there in Atlantic City. And then the show at night. So I'm with them Friday and Saturday. There's a lot of cool things coming up. And check out Grimm's Toy Show, GTS Wrestling. Grimm versus James Ellsworth just happened at SummerSlam. What a heck of a match that was. Go check that out. Subscribe to GTS Wrestling. Look for that on YouTube. GTS, Grimm versus Ellsworth on YouTube. Heck of a match I just did. I'm very proud of it. And yeah, man, I'm hyped up. I know you can hear it in my voice, and even though I'm on the phone with you, and usually that bums me out, I'm in a good mood right now. I'm in good spirits, and I thank everyone for their support here on the Dogcast.
You forgot your Twitter and Instagram.
Do I have to say it every week? It's at Real Ellsworth on Twitter, James Ellsworth Wrestling on Instagram, AdrenalineWrestling.com is my website, and my address is at 654. I'm not going to plug everything every week, duh.
There you go. WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. You get the Dougcast every week there. You also get Wrestling Perspective with myself and P.D. Williams. We switch servers, so if you listen on SoundCloud, we're not there anymore. Go to WrestlingPerspective.podbean.com. You can listen there. We're still on iTunes, Stitcher. We're on Spotify now, iHeartRadio, any place, literally any place you get podcasts, that is where we are right now. WrestlingPerspective.com. Go there, like it, subscribe, tell your friends. James, this was the best podcast ever.
Can I just ask you a quick question before we get off, Dennis?
Yeah.
When baseball, I know you're into baseball like I am. When a manager makes their lineup, do they announce the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th hitters first? Just asking for a friend. Just for a friend.
Only if you're the Baltimore Orioles. They're all 6th, 7th, and 8th hitters.
Oh, that's a jab at me because I'm from Baltimore and I love the Orioles.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, we're going to get off of here, folks, because I'm going to, say some things to Dennis that we're not allowed to say on this podcast, even though we use the F word on this podcast.
Only Chris Jericho
aren't allowed.
Only Chris Jericho is allowed to drop the F-bomb on this podcast. New rule.
Jericho does what he wants. He's a free spirit, and I admire that about that guy, and he's a true friend, and I'm going to text him right now and thank him for putting up with you, number one.
There we go, guys. This week's Dougcast. Thanks.